Good afternoon, everybody. As a moderator, my name is Paul. I'm the Compliance Director at TM2, or Technology Metals Limited. It's my great pleasure to introduce the panel of today. Petur Georgesson, who is just coming on stage. He's our CEO and founder of the TM2 platform. Next, we have Michael Hollomon, who's the CEO and founder of Missouri Cobalt and a board member of our TM2, a dyed-in-the-wool metals trader of many of the great names. And finally, Peter Thomas, a senior executive at Zaner Precious Metals in Chicago, a board of trade trader for many, many years. Welcome to everybody, and thank you. Peter is going to come and give us a short presentation on some of the activities that TM2 has to offer.
Great. Well, nice to see everyone here. We're introducing something very interesting for both sides of the market, so the buy side and the sell side, or production, supply, and demand, which is technology metals market, which is effectively an exchange and marketplace for technology metals. As you can see from this slide here, we cover a big part of the periodic table. So these are metals which are not covered by any other exchange in the world today. And the reason we did that is we saw, well, it's pretty evident, there has been over $1 trillion a year of trade in these metals, which has been nearly opaque, meaning that the supply chain has been virtually the same as it has been for decades. You have one-dimensional supply lines which are effectively controlled by a few major trading companies in the world who go through brokers and sell directly to end users. This has pretty much created a situation of opacity, a total lack of transparency, and effectively has led to many other problems with the market, one of them being price discovery. What TM2 did was we're a physical marketplace, so everything we have is backed one-to-one. Effectively, what we're offering is a way to take direct exposure into the metals that are going into every one of these industries. We have over 150 custodians located around the world where the product is kept physically one-to-one. This is what TM2 has been doing to the investment market. Since 2018, we've been building this business. We went live in June of this year. There's over 20 tickers now tradable. And we've been contacting companies around the world, institutional investors, end users, retail, effectively building the investment universe. One can imagine the great demand there is for this limited supply we've been talking about throughout these sessions. But on the demand side, there's a huge amount of interest from the investment market as well. This is a screenshot here. You can see what the market looks like. It looks exactly like a market should. You can go in simply, register quickly as an institution, as retail, and you can buy your products. We're in partnership with NASDAQ for the secondary market. They provide us the technology and are a partner in data distribution across the world. One of the things that a big benefit of this business has been the element of price discovery. When you have buyers meeting sellers, this is what happens. These are some of the products that are already live and trading. As you can see, we're covering platinum and palladium and the PGMs, the rare earths, and many more metals to come. As I mentioned earlier, some of the other things we've created are packaged products. So it's effectively marketing products, you could say, because you can take a metal like cobalt, and it's known as cobalt as a raw material, but once you package it into a financial product, it can have a lot of other names. It's an EV metal, or a battery metal. So one of our baskets is called the EV ETMB, which is an exchange-traded metal basket which has 8 metals in it, which are in every single one of the EVs. And effectively, you're making an investment directly into the metals that go into every one of the EV companies or EV cars, rather than to any of the direct equities themselves. So these are the type of advantageous products we create. It opens up an entire new space for producers. You can also consider that fractionalizing this down, selling this into retail so that there can be, we've created a new asset class. Effectively, what happens there is these units are sold in smaller amounts, and you can likely get higher pricing on your products when you're selling in through these various type of structures. Simply, we've taken supply, which traditionally went only into the main supply chain of end users, and what we've done is open up a new investment market, where now wealth, trading business, connectivity, retail can all have access to these metals on an investment basis. So with that in mind, I wanted to as well leave some time for my colleagues and partners to discuss a little bit about how this market is changing. We've been in a constant situation here when we come back to this slide of having a supply, here we are, a supply situation, going a little too fast. There we go. So we've had a supply situation which is going to be outstripped by demand for a foreseeable future. And this is one of the topics that was a part of what brought TM2 into this market, to be able to get ourselves into the supply and supply product into the investment universe. So Michael and Peter, I thought maybe you would like to have a couple of words to open the panel discussion a little bit about the supply and the changes in the market.
Can you hear me? Test, test. Am I good? All right. I'm Pete Thomas. I don't know if you remember, I think they did a book and a movie about me back in the day when we took silver from $4 to $50 with the Bunker Hunt family. If any of you made a little money on that, congratulations. It was a fun ride. But the reason I got involved with these individuals is because, bottom line is, I think that anyone in mining right now, I don't understand why people aren't standing in line with baskets of cash right now for you guys, because it's just has to be the most exciting time ever to be a miner, to be a producer, to be a refiner. We have recyclers that are with us. We own a platform at Zaner called Tornado, in which we allow hedgers and of any type to lay off risk. And that's how I became interested in TM2. It looks to me, I'm crunching the numbers right now, they just passed a very interesting law in which they made 289 million cars in America illegal, including light trucks and heavy vehicles. 289 million cars which are going to have to be replaced with EV. Well, an EV car uses 90 to 110 pounds of copper. Your average car runs anywhere from 10 to 25 pounds of copper. We're moving into a shortage on the copper demand side by 2030. We're never going to be able to meet the demand. And that's just one market. If you look at Evergrande right now in China, they have a commitment for 1 million condominiums, which are going to consume 289 pounds of copper each, and they haven't even started on those. That's just two small projects standalone by themselves. The numbers I did last week were, I'm looking at China as producing and consuming 63% of all the copper available. So we're going to have a tremendous shortage in copper. I was in a very lengthy interview, about a half hour. It's on YouTube now, with Dr. Davis, who is the authenticator for all the mines in South Africa. If you look it up on YouTube, it's very informative, I think. And it goes to platinum and palladium, which is going to be another issue. The platinum and palladium mines that are currently in usage right now in South Africa are 104 years old. The veins are very tired, and they're not doing enough to open new veins. They're talking about, as miners, you know, 3 years is a short period of time to get solid production. They're talking 7 years now. So we're going to get into a downslope of production in platinum palladium where you're going to have to be on this T2 in order to procure as a COO, or going out if you're using wire, cathodes, things of that nature. In order to get your product, you're going to have to end up there. Cobalt, another very interesting one. That any of you are producing cobalt, come see me. The DRC is responsible for 73% of the production of cobalt right now, and the average income of a miner is $1.90 a day. So production isn't that high, and there's no new mines being produced. We're seeing new stuff happening in America that's very exciting. And I think that that's just some of the products that we're going to be running out of here shortly, and you're going to have the availability and the possibility of mitigating that risk for your company by being on this platform. With that, I'm going to pass it over.
New stuff happening in America that's very exciting.
Absolutely.
Are you talking about us?
It was your segue, baby.
So I'm with Missouri Cobalt, but what's interesting, Peter, is I used to be with one of those big, mining companies and trading companies that control everything, right? And we thrived on opaque markets. It was the best thing in the world to keep it, keep people from knowing exactly where things were going.
I don't know what the price is.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah,
well, it's whatever you tell me.
Whatever I tell you.
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
But now I'm on the mining side at Missouri Cobalt,
Right.
and we want to know what cobalt price is. And,
Sorry, I'm not telling you.
Try to ask a precursor maker what cobalt sulfate price is. You're not going to get a straight answer.
Nope.
So it's very difficult. And I remember when Peter came to me with this idea, he was just bouncing it around. Was it like 2015 or something? You were thinking about it, and I thought this was a great idea. And a real epiphany came for me in 2018, right after I joined Missouri Cobalt. Our chairman of the board had, in the same week, he had a golf caddy and he had the Wells Fargo chairman ask him, hey, how do I get exposure to cobalt? How do I do it? And at the time in 2018, how do you do it? You invest in Glencore, or you invest in, one of the big mining companies.
But what they don't tell you is when you put the money in Glencore, you're paying for salaries, you're paying for health insurance, you're paying. There's no way to get direct.
No direct investment
Exactly
for retail or smaller people, and that's why TM2 is the perfect way to get into these markets. And they've got a really good staff, a great group of people that are out canvassing the world to get a hold of metals, and you can actually hold the metal. I mean, the market for the golf caddy who wants exposure to cobalt, he can go online and buy a chunk of cobalt and hold it. With the way we're printing money in the US, if you can't tell by my socks, I mean, everything's going to Bitcoin and commodities. People are going to want to hold these metals, and I think the transparency, the price transparency is very important. I mean, at Missouri Cobalt, we are going to always want to have some of our metal, our battery metal. We have cobalt, nickel, and copper. We also have rhodium and some other rare earths. We want to have some portion of our tonnage on TM2 so we can always find out what's the real price. What are people willing to pay? We think American metal also deserves an ethical premium.
Right.
And we agree with you. There's a cobalt cliff coming. There's a huge nickel fire
Nickel's
burning.
Gonna be an absolute
Look at copper right
fire
now.
start.
So I think it's really good timing for this platform.
Yeah, and frankly, I mean, a perfect investment asset when you want to get exposure. I mean, we've fielded countless questions since we've been here about how to get exposure, right? And exposure has been primarily investing into the physical commodity somewhere in a warehouse somewhere via a few ETFs or through equities. All of these investments bring some form of risk, which is controllable when you're into a physical commodity. So this is something which both you're hedging yourself against future risks, you're hedging yourself against inflation, and you're backed in a commodity that's one-to-one.
So that's very important. This isn't a crypto asset, this is a physical market. You are actually buying that unit of metal, and you own that metal. So that's a very distinguished, there's no third party telling you what you have and what you don't have. It's yours, it's there in a warehouse. It's a very different animal. So it's a sea change of the ability to trade metals.
And also, and a lot of corporations as well, who when we think about where they're parking their money today, having access to get into alternative investment classes, which are physically backed and hedged to some degree with the physical nature, offers alternatives to being in T-bills. Right. So when we look at large public companies with a lot of cash on their balance, it's one of the areas that we're working on, building out, the demand there as well, because there's huge demand across the board. So it's not, as we've said, just the industrial side, but the financial side. However, the financial side wants a lot of the financial side wants a finished product. So that's effectively what we're creating, and this is what the market is about. And as the guys mentioned, price discovery is absolutely key, even from a producer perspective, mainly from a producer perspective. So these are a lot of things that are going on with the development of the market right now.
Well, there's also globally, you have countries getting involved. Like you just came back from the Middle East. There's some sovereign wealth getting involved in just buying metal and storing it.
Sure.
And you're in discussions right now with having that metal put on TM2.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a global gold rush going for battery metals and for these kind of technology metals that we see as the future.
And a lot of it's very defensive because they see where the price is going, so they're having to buy metals now using the platform to do that. So it's a defensive action by these sovereign and larger institutional people.
Absolutely. Well, your COOs of firms just love this because the idea is that we do business with someone that makes spark plugs. And those little nibs that go on the inside of spark plugs are made out of platinum. And they want to know that platinum is there when it's time for them to get it, and they want to buy it 2, 3, 4 years out against production value. And they can go to their bank and go, here we go. We have the product. It's here. This is what we're going to need. And that means they're at 0 beta. So their lending rate goes down. That's a real big reason to be using this. There's no question about it. If you can present a 0 beta on your risk for future purchases, you're going to be able to get money much easier out of any institution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for a lot of any of you that are producers and thinking of bringing something, into production soon, this is another way for you to open up and diversify your revenue streams. You won't just be having 1 or 2 offtake contracts and selling everything in bulk out. You'll actually we can take your product and we can do that, and we can structure this product into financial products. So as I was saying earlier, there's a likelihood for a premium. It's like when you take anything from a wholesale level to a retail level, the price goes up, and that's effectively what we're saying to you producers. Guys, it doesn't all have to go to the 1 or 2 offtake partners that take all your raw material. We can get a little more diversified. We can do that, and we can do finished financial products, which actually...
And we've effectively democratized the market. We've turned it a market where there are many suppliers and many buyers rather than many suppliers, few intermediaries, and not that many buyers at the other end of it. So it's a hugely democratizing exercise, which is very important.
Yep.
It's also allowing a miner to have a bespoke product. Like you will create a Missouri Cobalt bespoke spec. And we can even have, because we're building our hydrometallurgical plant right now that will take black mass, we're going to get nickel sulfate, we're going to get cobalt sulfate, we're going to get lithium out of that. We will be able to have Missouri Cobalt, exactly our spec, on, tailored to your market. And you can do that with anybody's material.
As long as you have that product certified and in a certified vault, and therefore it's now fungible.
Yeah.
And then you're off to the races. And if you're a producer,
good point.
That's exactly how you want to do it.
Good point.
And it's a very small cost setting up vaulting is very inexpensive. I had a major vaulting operation for many, many years. And it's easy to do, and getting the certification, the Swiss standards already in place for that. All of that can be done quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. So one of the first things we did, in fact, was put a blockchain underneath the market so that in terms of title, everything is always direct title. You don't own it through any intermediary. You can understand the traceability of the product as well, which is a big key that's been happening in the world right now. Everyone talking about traceability, understanding the origin and understanding how many hands that it's passed through. So from an entire perspective, democratization, transparency, empowerment, that's a bit the spirit of the world right now. And this is what we've been harnessing for the metal space globally. We also feel we're a young company. Go ahead, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about liquidity on the platform, and is there a minimum liquidity?
Nice.
The liquidity on the platform in terms of supply, we've managed now to secure, we're pretty deep in over 100 million in supply, deep on the market. So we have a lot to start selling. We've been live from June. We just surpassed our first $1 million in deposits after a few weeks, so it's not a major volume trading yet. We're expecting to be at about 1,000 members by the end of the year, and we're expecting volumes to be in the neighborhood of about $100,000 a day from next January. Overall, we're expecting that to grow very quickly since we've now been live. I expect by about the middle of next year, we should be in the millions per day. The level of interest right now is quite big. We're onboarding members every single day, and we're onboarding retail and institutional members. So it's coming along. Our biggest work right now is securing more and more supply. We pretty much have realized that everyone that we speak to is interested. It's just a question of more supply. Whatever supply we get, it'll all be sold. And that's how, the market's been pretty clearly.
What about the minimums? How much does it cost to be on board?
The minimums to get in can be $100. So we've unitized this and fractionalized this down into the ability for anyone to buy. And that was the whole thing of the democratization.
So no exchange membership fees, no high entry costs. It can be from a very retail end, fruit and institute. It's a platform fit for many different participants.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can I buy metals that haven't been taken out of the ground yet?
Metals that haven't been taken out of the ground.
Yeah,
Not yet, because everything is in the physical, one-to-one. But we've applied for our derivatives license in Singapore. So we will be having a futures market attached to this as well, which is obviously quite interesting. So now we'll have, I mean, as most of you know, there's very, very little ability to hedge on a lot of these metals here that we're talking about. So that would be an ability to have options on things.
Well, it's a huge part of the overall strategy. I mean, the thing is, if you're a miner and you've got an NI 43101, there's only a few places you can go, with your York classification. But if you're able to sell that ahead of time to the market, to the globe, that could change finance for mining.
Yeah, very much so.
And also one of the reasons I'm here is I represent Zaner Precious Metals, and we're coordinating with them. We're very close to signing as a liquidity provider for them, and we do a lot of metals. So they'll have tremendous depth in copper, platinum, palladium, and gold and silver. So on that side, they can do billions with us, and it won't be a problem. So we're going to cover that end of it as soon as we get a few things signed.
Crowdfunding for the mining space.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, since I see we've run out of time, is that as Mike and Peter were just saying, yeah, this will change a lot. It'll be a little bit like having an LME there for some of the other major metals that are being traded at the LME. All of a sudden, you'll have a periodic table with last supply across custodians around the world. It will change a lot the way financing is done in the metal space. Also, with the blockchain technology and the new technologies in the world, you can even retail and other types of members can benefit from owning metals on the platform. So big change coming.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. That was a really fascinating panel. So please give a warm round of applause to the Technology Metals Markets Limited panel. Thank you very much, and we really